Chapter 16. Malik and I had studied through the designated lunchtime, which was fine, since food was not a requirement. Next on my schedule was the building with the weapons room. Now I could recognize the letters underneath, and I sounded them out with some pride at my own ability. I-L-R-more-E, I said. Oh, Uriel. I knew all about him, of course. The Archangel had been a captain in the First War, right up there with Michael and the favored one himself. He was a master of weaponry and had sentenced many of the Forsaken, or all those who followed Hasatan, to Sheol. Unlike Michael, who preferred to place the Forsaken into Heaven's prison, Uriel's blade cut them down where they stood. His blazing sword of truth became the stuff of legends, and the Archangel was referenced with a mixture of horror and awe even today. So it should not surprise me that the armory would be named after him. I was several minutes early to class, and I entered the building quietly, not wanting to draw attention to myself. The room was empty. The gray wall covered with daggers and sabers beckoned me forward, calling to me. I was alone with a golden opportunity in front of me. This was my chance to take a dagger. I took a step forward and hesitated. A thickness grew in my chest, a warning that I shouldn't do this. I shook it off. I had no conscience. Heaven's curse was a gift. Those of us in Sheol felt no difference between good and evil. The knowledge was lost to us. We knew only pain and pleasure, punishment and reward. So why was a little voice whispering in my head, telling me to stop? I took 5 more steps forward, and the blades were within my reach. I could take one now, conceal it on my person, and take it to Sheol the next time I was summoned. There was no one around to witness my thievery. The ichor pounded in my ears. Do it, I told myself. I reached a hand out, but I shook so badly I worried I'd cut myself. And while the blade would only cause a temporary wound to my classmates, as a demon, one scratch could banish me for decades. What does Hasatan want with this? I hadn't bothered to ask because I was certain I didn't want to know. I had heard enough to understand his plans to create a weapon that could be used against the Angels of Light. Against my classmates. My classmates. The statement hung in my head, drawing up images of Iblis and Dara and Malik and Jeremiel. Could I really be the instrument to bring about their demise? If I delivered one of those daggers to my father, even if I did not strike the blow, I would be the cause of it. I took a step back before I even realized I had. My hand lowered, and I took another step, then another. When I looked again, I was on the other side of the room, the tantalizing wall of weapons out of reach. Why had I backed down? Was I so weak? There will be another chance, I whispered at them. The door to the armory opened, and by the time Master Ingram entered, flanked by several angel students, I was seated on the windowsill, quietly and innocently doing nothing. Oh, Master Ingram paused, something like surprise crossing her features when she saw me. What are you doing here? I got here early, I said. She just stared at me. But how did you get in? The door should have been locked. Well, it wasn't. Heaven's throne, was it usually? My heart sank within me at the realization that this might have been my one and only chance to take a dagger. I thought Barakiel didn't want you in here. Now my face warmed, and the other students peered at me with piqued interest. Suddenly, I wasn't just an early arrival. I was a curiosity. The class is on my schedule, I said. I guess he changed his mind. Just one moment. She separated herself from the students around her and moved into another corner of the room. Her lips moved as she spoke toward the wall, but I couldn't make out what she said, nor did I see anyone with her. Then she turned around and came back, a grimace trying to pass for a smile stretched across her lips. Elder Master Barakiel says you can stay. He wants you to learn how we fight. Her white wings gave a single flap behind her, the only indication that perhaps she didn't love this plan. but he says you cannot touch the weapons. Not yet." I nodded as if I didn't care. Barakiel was right not to trust me, but it still grated on my nerves. I hadn't done anything to make him doubt me. Yet. "That's fine." I didn't need her permission. I'd get my hands on a dagger without her help. I didn't need to check my schedule to know dinner was next. I took my time leaving the weapons classroom, though not because I planned to sneak back in and grab a dagger. There were too many eyes on me right now. First, I had to earn their trust. But my soul was troubled, and I didn't want to analyze why. Malik stopped me as I neared the cafeteria. "Come with me," he said. I looked at him in surprise and peered around him toward the tables inside, where the rest of our peers were getting their food. I'd skipped the midday nourishment, and my body surprised me by letting me know it wanted an evening meal. I was going to eat. He held up his bag and opened it, revealing an assortment of baked goods. "I've got food for us." There was a jovial sparkle in his eye, something playful in the set of his mouth. I tilted my head, trying to make sense of it. "Why?" "I want you to see something." I could refuse, but I had no reason to. Whatever Malik's intentions were, they were not meant to harm me. "Okay." "This way." He stepped past me and hurried down the path, leaving me to fall into his wake. A few other students were on the same path, and we made our way across the quad to the Gabriel building. We weren't the only ones, and I walked slower to avoid bumping into the other angels moving toward the building. Malik reached the entrance first, and he stepped to the side and waited for me, one hand clutching the strap of his bag. "You all right?" he asked. I eyed the contents of his bag. "I could use some food." He pulled out a pastry and held it out to me. "Your soul is starting to crave the light," he said, his eyes studying my face as I took it. "What do you mean?" I took a bite and exhaled, feeling a sense of wholeness rush through my soul as I did. "As angels, the energy we expend during the day and during our classes is light energy we receive directly from Shamayim. It's replenished during Shema and prayers, but it's also infused into our food. Everything we eat helps us restore our light." I put the roll down. "But I'm not an angel," I whispered, catching his eye. Only Malik knew this truth about me. "Maybe you don't know what you are." I opened my mouth to protest, but he rode over me. "You're surrounded by light. You're consuming it. A creature of darkness would be burned at its presence. You're not." He seemed satisfied with his assessment of me, but I shook my head. Elder Master Barakiel is shielding me. Only because of him am I able to withstand the light of Arcadia. I hated to remind Malik of what I was, but he could not forget. I was a creature of darkness. "Maybe," he said, but something about his eyes made me think his words were not entirely truthful. The other students had disappeared inside the building, and Malik bobbed his head. "Let's go in. You're going to like this." "What is it?" I asked, but he just opened the door and led the way. The auditorium was dark, but a spotlight shone on the empty stage. Malik scooted into the empty row in the back, and I followed, leaving one empty seat between us. A prickle of nervousness crept down my spine. This wasn't Shema, was it? If he'd led me here to join in prayer and devotion, I'd have to leave in a hurry. No way my demon heart would withstand the outpouring of spirituality. Before I could speak or ask any questions, 2 lines of students filed onto the stage. Instead of wearing their uniforms, they were dressed in the more traditional white gowns, their white wings open and brilliant behind them, creating the effect of looking like a large dove instead of a dozen individual students. The girls wore a white scarf knotted on the side of the neck. What were they going to do? I leaned forward in apprehension. A girl in the front row opened her mouth, and a single high-pitched note pierced the air. I caught my breath, hanging on the pure, beautiful quality of that sound. I felt I could dive into it, be surrounded by its beauty. Before I could fully analyze it, 3 girls behind her opened their mouths and added their voices to her. "What is it?" I whispered. How do the sounds float in the air like that? Those are sopranos, Malik said. And yes, their voices ring like a musical instrument. They probably had the talent on Earth, but they've perfected it here. They sang in a language I didn't know, and I couldn't interpret the words. But the message resonated with my soul, so beautiful that I felt as if the darkness were peeling away from my heart, revealing a fragile, bruised soul, too raw for exposure. The men in the row behind the women joined in, and the song rushed over me like a wave of heat. My eyes burned, and for a brief moment, I felt fear. Was this the moment my soul would incinerate and I would turn to dust? A feeling like I'd never known before welled up in my chest and burst forward, so overwhelmingly beautiful that my throat ached to sing. My voice wanted to join to theirs. I couldn't keep this to myself, and if I died in this moment, it would be in a moment of pure and exquisite joy. Joy? Was that what this was? My shoulders trembled, and the burning in my eyes spilled forward, racing down my cheeks in rivulets of water. I wanted to hold the song in my fingers, press it into my heart. Then the song ended, and the angels around me clapped heartily as the lights in the auditorium turned on. I didn't want it to end. I sat very still, hoping I could keep the feeling with me as long as I didn't move. I sensed Malik's eyes on me, and I shifted my head enough to meet his gaze. Something like triumph glowed there. I knew it, he said. I tried to speak, but couldn't. Blinking and regaining my composure, I tried again. What? I whispered. He reached a hand out toward mine, and I yanked mine back, fearing his touch. He met my eyes, an intensity burning in their golden depths that made my heart do a tumble. Knew you would like that, he said. Somehow, I didn't think that's what he'd been thinking. The atmosphere seemed different at breakfast the next day. Or was it just me? Laughter broke out down the table as somebody sent a grape rolling past the trays. The joviality didn't end there, and someone else added a pancake to the food train. I let out a squawk of surprise when a piece of biscuit landed next to my tray. It's a game of skyball, someone shouted, and napkins and grapes shot across the table. A napkin slapped Jeremiel on the side of the face. Hey, Jeremiel said, his face going red. He jumped to his feet, balling the napkin up in his hand. I'm sorry, Daniel said, getting up as well. We were just messing around. Jeremiel's fist tightened, and red and black color shot off him like sparks. Mess around with someone else, he growled, and then he stormed away, not even bothering to move his tray. What was that about? I whispered, leaning my head toward Iblis. I thought he was going to hit him. I know, Iblis breathed, her blue eyes large and luminous. And I thought there wouldn't be fighting in heaven. Malik and Rigori, another second year who always seemed to be near him, overheard, and they laughed at that statement. First of all, you're not in heaven, Malik said, his golden brown eyes crinkling at the corners. Didn't I know that? And second of all, while it doesn't happen as often as on Earth, we still get into fights and brawls up here. How else do you think the first war happened? Daniel shook his head, his black hair bouncing from side to side. I definitely had different ideas about the afterlife. We all did, Malik said. He stood, shouldering his bag. Depending on what religious beliefs we were taught. And in the end, we all end up here. Leek stood also, mimicking Malik. Seems kind of pointless to have any kind of belief on Earth. Not at all. Malik waited as the rest of us gathered our things, then spoke again, as if he wanted to make sure we all heard. Everything we learned on Earth prepared us for life here. Some come better prepared than others. Some people fly through the academy training, quite literally, because they acquired more spiritual knowledge on Earth. Others have to start at the beginning. So maybe he just wanted to make sure I heard. Some aren't going to make it through at all, Daniel said, casting a glance after Jeremiel. Yeah, Leek snorted in agreement. You're being too hard on him, Iblis said. Her wings opened and closed gently, a soft breeze whispering over us. We don't know what experience he's coming from. We wandered out of the cafeteria, but we stayed as a group and the conversation continued. What I do know is every time I look at him, I see red and black color swirling off him, and I don't need a class to tell me what that means, Leek replied. Is there a class on that? I asked, my interest piqued. I certainly saw plenty of colors, but I didn't know what they meant either. Not yet, Abaddon, another second year, said. You'll start your classes on aura interpretation in your second year. I paused at the fountain and opened my book to check my schedule. I recognized the building lit up on the map, and I paused to mouth the symbols beneath. Building. Building. I smiled as I figured out the pronunciation, even if it had been tricky. Then my eyes flickered to the top where I read, Intro to Celestial History. Ha! I'd gotten that also. Looks like you're going the same place I am. I turned toward Cherubial as he approached, and my body flushed warm for some reason. It was both a pleasant and unnerving sensation. Hi. Hi. He gave me an easy smile and shoved his hands in his pockets as he matched my stride. Today, shades of orange, brown, and green rolled off him. What class is everyone else going to? I nodded toward the rest of my dorm mates. I spotted a few of his as well. They had already gone inside the Duma building, but I knew I hadn't seen them in my class last time. Most everyone has a history class right now, but we go to different ones. You and I get the history class for dummies. For dummies? I furrowed my brow, unfamiliar with the word. No offense intended. It's how they see us, not how I do. That did not clear things up. But why? Well, I guess we didn't learn enough about heaven in our last life. Or what we did learn, they need us to unlearn it. Indoctrinate us with falsehoods, I said. But this time, my usual fury was tempered with another trembling emotion. Fear. A nagging fear that maybe I was the one believing falsehoods. Exactly. Make us see things the way they want us to. Why was I so threatened by what they had to say? Cherubial opened the door for me and I stepped inside, and then I drew to a halt so suddenly he almost crashed into me. Jez, what is it? Look! I sidestepped to the left, putting a few more inches between us, and pointed. My fingers shook, and I hoped he didn't notice. Cherubial craned his head and laughed out loud. Two angels stood in the next hall over, their arms locked around each other, their faces attached at the mouth, the embrace both passionate and lustful. Chapter 17. What are they doing? I hissed. It's called making out. His tone was mocking. Never tried it? But here? In Arcadia? I couldn't get my words out. They tripped over each other, and my eyes darted into the corners of the hallways, waiting to see the wrath of God descend upon them, to see them incinerated to energy particles right before my eyes. What's the big deal? Cherubial eyed me. It's forbidden! I screeched. The angels heard me. They turned their faces our direction, but I took off down the hall. Jez, wait. Cherubial hurried to catch up with me. He reached for my arm, but I slammed away from him, taking deep breaths to calm my heart. First, the touching, I gasped out. Now this. Kissing. Kissing! I knew this word. This one physical act had led to the downfall of millions of souls. It was the gateway sin to damnation. How? Cherubial studied me. It's a nice thing. That's why it's forbidden. The classroom door opened and Master Remiel stepped out. He looked at us both with concern on his face. Is everything all right? Cherubial turned to me. I think she... Everything's fine. I flung myself past them, careful not to brush against either of them. My thoughts whirled in confusion. Malik had to have been telling the truth. Touch was not forbidden. What else was I mistaken about?
"All right, class," Master Remiel said, stepping up to the whiteboard. "We're going to continue where we left off last time."
He drew a line across the board.
"But first, did anyone go to the library and study any of the topics we discussed?"
He swiveled to face us, and I thought how sad it was that he'd retracted his wings. His magnificent white wings should never be hidden. Most of the students lowered their heads or dropped their eyes, but I didn't. I just shook my head. I couldn't even properly read yet.
"Great, then I know what to go over,"
he smiled, and the other students lifted their gazes, chuckling in appreciation also. Above the line on the board, he drew a giant circle.
"When we were created by the Father, we lived here."
Zophiel raised her hand. "Created how?"
"You'll learn about the creation of souls in your third-year biology class. For now, just understand that the Father formed each of us into spiritual beings."
"All of us?" A boy with curly blonde hair and wearing the colors of the Emet dormitory asked. "That's billions of people."
"Billions and billions, Camille, and the Father created all of us before any other creation."
Kerubiel gave a derisive snort.
"I bet he was tired after all that." "Indeed, a day of rest has always been a part of the schedule."
"So he created all of us?" Zophiel leaned forward. "What did we do?"
"We lived. This was in Shamayim. Time wasn't measured for us the way it is now. We don't have a sense of how long we were there."
"Like we lived in houses?" A girl with long red hair chewed on the end of her stylus. I couldn't tell what dorm she was from, as she hadn't changed out of her Earth clothing yet. She had a screen open on her book, and new words had been written across the top. "Like we did on Earth?"
"In a similar way, Layla. We organized according to friends and relations, not families at this time, since such a thing didn't exist. All of us were family, but with so many of us, it didn't feel familial. It felt friendly. But we were also primitive. We had feelings and no way to channel them. We had no physical bodies, even though we were created in a semblance of the form we are today. We couldn't feel. We couldn't touch."
Couldn't touch. Those words resonated with me. I looked down at my hands and ran them over my arms, covered by the soft sweater of my dorm. I couldn't touch. I couldn't touch. Maybe it was just me.
"We could only learn and develop so much in Shamayim, and our Father saw this. He knew we needed a place to go where we could develop not only physically, but spiritually and mentally. So he created a world and gave us our first task. Come up with an idea involving the new world that would help achieve this goal."
Remiel smiled, though the expression seemed tinged with sadness.
"This was the last time all of our Father's children worked together on a project."
"What happened?" Camille asked. I knew what happened. My father submitted a plan, a perfect plan. Each one of them would be sent to Earth with a body and a clear directive from which they could not stray. Guaranteed redemption, guaranteed salvation. It was benevolent and loving and unselfish. But the favored one had a different plan, and for even considering a contrary way, Hasitan was slammed down to Sheol, a new place created just for him. Not that he went quietly. I did not speak, though. I wanted to hear how Remiel would tell the story.
"Several plans were put forth, each of them holding merit. There was some squabbling and disagreement on our parts, but in the end, we knew the final judgment lay with the Father."
"Several plans?" I interrupted. I furrowed my brow. There were just two. The other students looked at me, but I kept my eyes steady on Remiel.
"You are misinformed, Jez. Thousands of excited, eager-to-please angels submitted a plan.
No, I shook my head. Only 2. And for even attempting to subterfuge the plan of the favored one, the second was cast away into darkness.
First of all, the proper term is the firstborn. Now, let's analyze what you think you know. From your perception, there were 2 angels vying for their plan to be chosen. Am I correct?
Yes.
But one never really had a chance. So by simply submitting his plan in opposition of the chosen plan, he was punished, correct?
His eyes were steady on me, unerring, and I nodded, finding my voice to be hidden.
My statement that thousands of plans were submitted conflicts with this knowledge, because it would mean either thousands were also punished, like the one you reference, or that the one you reference was not punished the way you have been taught to believe. Also correct?
He'd gotten to the heart of the matter, and his words struck a nerve. I sank lower in my seat, wishing the other students would look somewhere else. Now my voice whispered out of me, "Yes."
Let your belief be challenged then, Jez, and this will not be the first time. For I also submitted a plan to the Father. I can even pull it up and show you, for my memory of the first existence is strong and clear.
First existence? Layla interrupted. Her stylus scribbled like crazy across her screen. I thought our Earth life was the first existence.
It's the first one you can remember right now, but it was your second existence, and this is your third. All of them tied together into one eternal life.
He addressed her question before facing me again.
My plan was presented to all of us souls, along with thousands of others. For eons of time we debated the plans. We discussed the pros and cons while our Father readied the interplanetary system for us, preparing us to live on a world with physical bodies. Eventually, all but 2 plans were rejected, including my own. While I felt the sting of not having my plan chosen, I recognized the flaws in my own thinking, for we had spent decades debating them by now. There were 2 plans left, and they were similar in almost every way.
What were they? Sophia asked, her eyes alight with interest.
Both involved us coming to Earth and procreating as man and woman to receive our bodies. Both allowed us to be born, grow, and die. But one of the plans wanted to make all the decisions for us so we would never know hurt or sin or pain. It guaranteed a way for us to return to Shamayim with the Father, not losing a single soul to darkness. The other plan called for each of us to fall and stumble along the way, to make our way through mortal life with no memory of heaven, to feel pain and sorrow and sin.
There, I blurted out, sitting up straight in my seat. Isn't it obvious which is the better plan? Why would anyone choose to feel pain? Why would any caring father require his children to go through that? My heart pounded in my chest at the boldness of my outburst, and I heard the murmurs of agreement around me.
That was what many of us said then, too. Why? Why would we want that? And then the Father pointed out, if we didn't feel pain, we couldn't feel pleasure. If we didn't know sorrow, we couldn't know joy. And if we never fell into sin, we couldn't escape into the light. Once that was explained to us, we made our decision. We didn't want a half-life on Earth. We wanted the chance to experience it all, the good and the bad.
But not everyone, I said, rattled. The way he described it, the other plan did sound better. Even to me, it was appealing. Pleasure, joy, light. I wanted to feel those things.
Not everyone, Remiel agreed. What do you know of this part, Jez?
I shook my head. I wasn't about to elucidate the situation. My knowledge was not the same as theirs, and I didn't know who was right at the moment. I did know that Hasitan did not go down without a fight.
While most of us agreed that the plan the Father chose was the correct one, a good number of angels did not. They wanted the experience the second plan provided. Going to Earth, getting a body, and a guaranteed return.
Remiel let out a sigh. He turned to the whiteboard and drew 3 stick people on one end. On the other end, he drew 6 more.
1/3 of the souls rebelled, pulling away and vowing to see the second plan through to the end. What followed next was the First War.
Remiel put down his stylus and faced us, forcing his lips to curve upward into a smile.
We will start on the First War in our next class. In the meantime, are there any questions?
His gaze scanned the room before landing on me. I shook my head.
Again, I encourage you to go to the library and look up what you've learned. Many great books have been written on the subject.
I refrained from an eye roll. Yes, many great books written by angels. How unbiased could they be? Master Remiel watched me as I got up and left the classroom, but I had nothing more to say on the matter.
You seem to know a lot about this,
Cherubio said, catching up to me as I exited the building. For once, I didn't want to talk to him. He confused me. I quickened my pace instead. I know some things.
How?
I just do, I snapped. He lifted his hands and stopped walking.
Fine, jeez, sorry.
I could tell from his posturing that I'd offended him, but I didn't care. I wanted answers, and I had no way to get them.
For what it's worth, Cherubio called after me, I think the other plan would have been better also.
I stopped and turned to face him. I studied him, a quiver in my lips. I'm not so sure, I said.
You seemed pretty sure in there.
I'm not anymore, and those who chose it paid a price. His eyes widened.
So, some did choose it. They got to go to Earth and live out the second plan?
No. I turned around and continued marching to my dorm. It didn't play out that way. They said all of the books ever written were in the library. I went there after dinner, running my fingers over the spines of words too lengthy for me to sound out. What was I looking for anyway? It was like I'd said before, the only thing I'd find here would be angel doctrine. Demons couldn't read, they certainly couldn't write. But they had communicated with humans before. Perhaps a human might have written their story. Even as I considered it, I disregarded the thought. Such a book could exist, but the distorted words and confusion behind them would not shed any light on my troubled soul. I returned to the dorm, glad that Iblis had gone to Shema. I still couldn't go. I feared what so much light would do to me. I took my sweater off and stood in front of the mirror, tracing the chains on my arms. As long as the chains bound me to Sheol, the presence of anything holy could immortally wound me. It was why Barakiel had shielded me when he brought me here, because even the light from the academy was too much for me at first. But I had grown accustomed to it, enough to tolerate portions of it. I wasn't quite sure what that meant. I dug my finger into one of the chain loops on my arm, feeling the thickness of the metal as it wrapped around my skin. It was more than just a mark. I swiveled slightly and looked at my bare back in the mirror. Not even tiny, humiliating wings, like I had let Iblis believe, marred my skin. I sighed and put the sweater back over my arms, a heavy weight at my chest. There was a part of me that wanted to be what everyone else here was. But I carried these constant reminders that I couldn't be. It wasn't up to me. Everyone was free to decide, except me. Iblis had her assignments spread out around her desk. I sat down at her chair and rifled through the books, curious about what she was studying, but not curious enough to try to read. The dorm door opened, and I stood as Iblis came in. I worried she would be upset about me looking at her books, but then I saw her red eyes and the tears on her face. "You've been crying," I said. She rolled her eyes and dropped her agenda on the desk. "Yeah, stupid emotions." She sank down onto her bed. I hesitated, worried about getting too close. But she needed me. She was my friend. Perhaps my only friend. I sat down beside her, keeping very still to prevent myself from bumping her. What's wrong? Something had to be wrong for her to be crying. I had been the cause of tears too often not to know that. My gut twisted within me. It's nothing, really. Shima talked about inclusion and acceptance, and it made me think of Jason. Jason. I racked my brain, trying to put a face to the name. This wasn't someone I knew. Is he in our dorm? She gave a dry laugh and shook her head. No, he's my boyfriend. Was my boyfriend. I'm dead now, so... She shrugged. I don't imagine he still thinks of me as his girlfriend. Ah, I remembered now the conversation we'd had about him several weeks earlier. But you still feel connected to him? I said, leaning back. Iblis nodded. Of all the people I miss, he's the one I miss the most. Not because I loved him the most, but because whatever connection we had is gone now and will never happen again. That is sad, I said. It had not occurred to me before that such a thing would be sad. I searched my brain for a solution. Maybe he'll come here too. Iblis wiped her tears away. I would never wish that on him. He would have to die as a teenager to come to the academy. I don't want that for him. I want him to live a long and happy life. To live. And that means without me. But he will die someday, I said, grasping at straws. Maybe then you will find each other. By then he'll have married. He'll have fallen in love again. I will be a distant memory. The pain showed in her eyes. What if he doesn't? What if he keeps on loving you until the day he dies? There was a flicker of something on her face, and she said, Well, I will definitely still be here. But then she sighed, and the flicker was gone. What kind of life would that be? To spend every day pining for the dead? Besides, he is human. Humans can't stay devoted to something they can't see for very long. Oh, there was so much truth in that. I retired to my own bed, thinking of Iblis and her Jason. Would they be together if he were here? Would they kiss like the angels I'd seen in the hallway? Were all of the angels kissing except me? We reposed in silence, letting our minds reflect over the happenings of the day. I closed my eyes and drifted away into unconsciousness, a semi-dream state where I could imagine a different kind of world. One where I could be who I wanted to be. One where I got to choose. One where I had wings. One where I could kiss. An angel's face popped into my mind, and the desire to touch my lips to his burned so poignantly in my chest that for a moment I worried I'd caught on fire.
Jess.
The whispered call jarred me from my rest, and I sat up, guilt racing through my veins. My traitorous thoughts consumed me.
Jess.
Came the call again. I sat up. He wanted to talk to me? Fine. I had questions also. Chapter 18. I made my way out of the dorm and through the quad to the fountain which chattered quietly into the silent night. The moon glowed overhead, almost as bright as the sun. I looked into the waters of the fountain and watched as they churned and blackened. There was my way to Sheol, and I didn't want to take it. Sighing, I jumped feet first into the chilled water. The chains around my arms tightened, pulling me down, pulling me home. My feet landed on solid ground, and the dry, heated air warmed me immediately, sucking the moisture from my skin and clothing. I turned, searching in the dark for my father.
Report, daughter.
The voice came from behind me, and I swiveled again. A shadow faced me, dark and scintillating, the outline barely visible against the flames of hell in the distance. I swallowed as fear leapt up from my belly. The wrong word, and he'd have my hide. I do not have the dagger.
And why not?
I was interrupted when I was about to take it. They are watching me. They are more suspicious of me.
Of course. Judging you before they know you. Self-righteous as ever. You will have to be sneaky. You will retrieve a dagger.
Again, the command and my body flinched. I would have no choice next time but to take it. Yes, my lord, but when I do, I will likely be expelled from the academy. There are many more things I can learn from them if I'm permitted to stay.
Such as?
There are advanced classes for second years. We're taught how to use our powers. They teach us how to read different languages. I could become quite useful.
Yes, you could,
he said, but there was something else in his tone, like he wondered at my motivations. I wasn't sure of them myself.
You are not the only one, you know.
I stiffened. The only what?
The only one I have my hopes on. There is another besides you who can accomplish your mission.
My heart stuttered slightly. His warning was clear. I was dispensable. He could destroy me as readily as he created me. Good for you, I said, keeping calm. You won't need someone else. I will fulfill the mission.
Good.
He sounded smug and sure of himself. I lifted my chin, thinking of my questions. They said there were many plans submitted before the First War, not just yours and his, that you weren't punished for submitting a plan.
Did they say that?
A dark note entered his tone.
And what did you say?
I said what I've always been taught, I snapped back, that you were treated unjustly.
And they said?
That I was mistaken?
Are you?
I took a step closer, trying to make out his features in the darkness, but he remained wreathed in shadow, as always. I did not even know what my own father looked like. What about the promises you made?
I've kept my promises.
A hand snatched out of the shadow, long, knobby fingers with misshapen nails. It wrapped around my arm, igniting the metal beneath my skin, and I screamed as the razor-sharp pain cut through me.
The new rule is about to begin. You will usher it in, or you will be eliminated. Your entire purpose, the reason for your creation, is now.
The pain wrapped around my neck, my shoulders, entered my head and inflamed my mind. My cries melted into those of 1,000 other anguished souls, and my edges frayed, sparks of energy breaking off and soaring away.
The fulfilling of all things is at hand, and my kingdom will be a part of it. My kingdom will be the new rule. I have foreseen the days to come.
He released me, and I gathered the pieces of my being together, sinking to my knees and letting the energies drift back to me. I trembled from the mere memory of the excruciating pain. His hand fell near my head, and I flinched, but his flesh did not touch mine.
Come, child. You've won many souls for my kingdom. Now it is time to fulfill your destiny and bring me the academy students.
He chuckled grimly.
Free will? We will offer them a choice. Either they join me, or their souls will be set free. Permanently.
I shuddered. The daggers could not destroy an immortal soul, only dispatch the energy particles, and the daggers couldn't hurt beings of light. But Hasitan knew that, so there must be something else he had planned. The sharp nails dug into the scalp of my head, and again the pain from his touch seared through me.
You will bring me a dagger. My time is almost at hand.
He inhaled sharply.
I can smell it.
He released me, and I collapsed on the hard ground, my fingers grasping for something to hold on to, something to ease their trembling. Fear rocketed through my veins, and I panted, the sour taste of sulfur in the back of my throat.
Go now and do,
he said, his voice haughty.
Retrieve the dagger and await my next command.
I will do it, I said, and I would. There was no failing this time. I did not sleep when I returned to my dorm. I lay on my bed, staring at the light glow of the ceiling, sick and twisted thoughts churning within me. I rolled over onto my side and faced the wall. Tears pricked my eyes. For the first time, I understood. I wasn't bound by free will. Choices didn't trap us. They gave us options. But I was not created by their father. I was created by Hasetan, and he had me playing by a different rulebook. I had no choice. The hot, stealthy tears dripped from my eyes and over my nose and down the side of my face. Each trail left a burning path down my skin. Remorse was poison to a demon. Having a conscience was toxic to a dark angel. But I did not touch them or try to wipe them away. I deserved them. As soon as the sun rose, so did I. I pulled my sweater tight around me and left the dorm, heading straight for the library. It was time for breakfast, but Malik would come here eventually for our study session. I would wait. I sat in the library and traced circles with my stylus on the table. My agenda dinged with a message, and I opened it, wondering who it would be from, dreading who it might be from. Carubiel's face shone from the little icon. I mouthed the letters as I read them out loud. Where did Yahoo. That one gave me trouble until I realized I was overthinking it. Then I got it from context. You. Where did you go last night? The rest of the written word was unfamiliar and confusing, but it hardly mattered. I knew what Carubiel was asking, and a chill ran down my spine. I stared at my screen, unable to respond. Had he seen me? How much had he seen? The table jostled, pulling me from my thoughts as Malik settled his bag on top and sat across from me.
You skipped breakfast,
he said. Then he peered closer at me.
Are you all right?
I shook my head. I mean, yes, I'm fine.
What you really mean is you're not.
Malik leaned toward me across the table.
What's wrong?
How could I even begin to tell him about the secret rendezvous with the devil last night? Not to mention my mission, and now Carubiel, who may have seen me cavorting with demons? So I just shook my head again. I still have trouble fitting in.
It's not even the middle of your first year. By the end of this year, GAA will feel more like home than anywhere you've ever lived.
He gave me a curious look.
If you've even had a home before.
Sort of. I did not want to talk about my previous existence. Instead, I remembered what Carubiel and I had seen yesterday. Malik, I had to ask you. You said... I took a deep breath, feeling as if just speaking about this bordered on blasphemy. You said touching is not forbidden.
Right.
A slight smile quirked the right side of his lips, and the sudden wonder of what his lips would feel like if they touched mine leapt into my mind, and a strange tickle rushed up my belly. I forced my eyes to remain focused on his face. But yesterday I saw two angels kissing. Surely kissing is forbidden.
Ah.
He gave a wistful sigh.
Of course it's not. Why would you think that?
Because it is expressing a carnal lust, a sinful desire. Even in Arcadia, such things cannot be allowed.
Jez.
Malik folded his fingers together, his gaze serious.
So, there are laws and rules in heaven, but it's not the way you imagine. That's a fourth-year class. We do have to learn to tame our carnal desires, and there are acts we are expected to refrain from for our own good. But for now, in Arcadia, we're to let our consciences guide us. The closer we are to the light, the better decisions we make. On our own, without having someone set down rules for us. By the time we get to be third years, most angels are walking in the light and living by the rules of heaven without having to think about it.
So then, kissing's not allowed? Malik chuckled.
Kissing's always allowed. It's not just an expression of sinful desire, as you put it. It's also an expression of love and devotion.
Love and devotion. The words sent a shiver down my spine. If he touched his lips to mine, would it mean he was devoted to me? I banished the troubling thought. But how? How is that permitted? Angels can't possibly be encouraged to nurture such feelings.
And why not?
A challenge entered his expression, and he settled back, his jaw tightening.
We went to Earth to gain bodies and discover the glories of being a physical entity. Our bodies are different now, but we haven't forgotten. We remembered the joy of food and sleep and a warm bath and a mother's kiss and the caress of a hand. These feelings and understandings make us stronger. They make us better. Why would we want to forget them or pretend they don't exist?
He brought up excellent points, but I could not wrap my mind around it. I thought heaven was the one who decreed such things as forbidden.
Sounds like we have a lot to clear up from your former education.
Yes, I nodded, my eyes glazing over as I studied the marbled flooring beneath the table. Maybe we do.
So, I thought we'd get started.
Something heavy thumped on the table, and I lifted my face to see a thick book resting in front of Malik. He met my eyes and grinned.
Reading material.
I arched an eyebrow. You want me to read that?
We'll start with this. You're very smart and acquiring knowledge quickly. Why read about Jack and Jill when we can read Genesis?
My heart gave a little patter of uneasiness. Genesis? Something about the word had my skin crawling. Malik opened the book and turned it around to face me.
Right here,
he said, pointing at a large and gilded letter C. I began.
Ch. Those two letters put together make a new sound.
Right. Not off to a great beginning. Ch, ap, ter, o.
This is another weird one. Sometimes O makes a W sound. That happens here. So it's the number 1.
Gotcha, I breathed out slowly. Chapter 1. In.
TH also makes a new sound. That's the.
In the beginning, God. A shudder ran through me when I said the name. Had I ever dared utter that word aloud? My face grew hot, as did my torso.
Remember R? It does interesting things to consonants also.
I listened as Malik told me the rules, nodding my head and wanting to tell him I wasn't ready. I couldn't read this. But another part of me tingled with anticipation. I was reading Holy Writ.
Keep going.
God created the heaven.
Just heaven.
And the earth. The heat was increasing, creeping up my neck and into my hairline. And the earth was
without
form and void. I stopped and fanned my face. The warmth on my arms was growing unpleasant.
Good job with that word. Void. Keep going.
And darkness was up on the face.
This is another rule. When you have an E.
His explanation evaporated around me as I plucked at the sleeves of my sweater. Hot. I was getting too hot.
Jez, start there at face.
I started up again, only now it was with eagerness to finish. I needed out of the library. Face of the deep. Fire. Fire on my arms. And the Spirit of God. The moment the word left my mouth, flames exploded from my body. I heard Malik yell, but all I could think was how I needed to get the flames off me. I screamed and tore at my sweater and the button-up shirt I'd put on beneath, but both had burnt into ash. It was the chains. They glowed red hot, flames wicking off them, daring to burn anything that got close. My body racked with torment, the burning fire licking my exposed skin.
Be still, Jez.
Malik had taken off his jacket and moved to wrap it around me, but I shied back. "Don't touch me," I cried.
I'm trying to help you,
he shouted back. "And I'm trying to protect you," I screamed. That stopped him, but only for a moment. Then he thrust the jacket over my shoulders. I clutched at it, feeling the satiny cloth inside as it dampened the heat of the chains. Malik reached out as if to grab my arm, and I was too beat to stop him. But instead of closing around my arm, a fiery jolt shot through me to him that had him yelping and jerking backward. I closed my eyes and sank to the ground, letting his jacket billow around me. There must be something good in him, something strong enough to put out the flames, because his jacket soothed my skin like a healing balm.
Let me see.
He crouched in front of me, a healthy distance between us this time. "It's all right," I shook my head. "They've burned me before."
This was my fault.
I looked up and saw the torment on his face. Why did he care if he hurt me, a demon of darkness? Not too long ago, I was certain that if given the choice, he would have gladly sliced me through with an archangel sword.
"Let me see your arms,"
he said again. I removed his jacket and held my arms out, hands fisted. My skin had been burned, but the burns faded as we watched, soaking back into the chain-ridden skin of my body. The chains did not disappear. They still glowed, though the heat had lessened. Instead of orangish red, they glowed a faded copper color. Almost as if testing to see if it would happen again, Malik snatched at my wrist with his fingers. The same painful shock rippled between us, and he sucked in a breath and pulled back. "It's forbidden," I said, understanding crashing down around me. "It's forbidden for us. We cannot touch. Not for them, but for us."
"You,
the Forsaken," I said, clarifying. "We never got bodies. We don't get to experience all the glories of being a physical entity." For the second time in one day, my eyes filled with tears, and the sadness and unfairness caused me to bow my head and shudder. Malik sat beside me without saying a word. When I finally lifted my head, his eyes were still on me.
"I'm sorry."
"You?" I scoffed. "What do you have to be sorry for?"
"Many things. Let's start with my ignorance. I thought I knew everything about you when I met you, but I know nothing about those from Sheol."
"Aren't you taught about us in your history classes?" He shook his head.
"We learn about the First War and the part the Renegades played in it. Third and fourth years can take a specialized history class that delves into the underworld, but most of us as Guardians don't need that information. So my knowledge of you was mostly hearsay and preconceived notions I brought with me from Earth."
I attempted a smile. "So, I'm not as bad as you feared?"
"I didn't know the demons could feel."
"Well, of course they can," I said.
"I mean, I knew they could, but I thought they only felt evil and malice and darkness, not the same things I feel."
I fell silent. He wasn't too far off on that. My feelings had been changing and developing ever since I'd arrived in Arcadia. In Sheol, there was no place for such tender and weak emotions.
"And I apologize for not knowing what would happen if you read the word. I should have cleared it with Barachiel first."
"He might not have known either," I said, "since none from Sheol have ever been able to read."
"Perhaps,"
he acknowledged with a head bob.
"And I'm sorry you can't touch."
His voice lowered to a hush, and the fingers of his left hand reached out toward me, tracing the space on the floor between our hands. The sincerity in his words opened something in my chest, as if it had been a closed box, and now Malik had unlocked it and slowly wedged it open. The pain in my arms dissipated even more. "It's all right. I'm used to that one." He nodded at me, his eyes moving to include the chains, now a dark gray, that wrapped around my arms.
"What's with the chains?"
"They are a reminder, like I needed one, that I'm not one of you. The ends of the chains rest in Sheol. That is where my home is. Unlike you, I am not a product of free will. At any moment, if my master calls me home, I must obey. I lifted my gaze and met his as I said the last words. Guilt and displeasure teased my insides, and I hoped fervently he would remember my words in the days to come.
Come on.
Malik stood and waited for me to join him.
Let's visit Barakiel and make sure you're all right.
I'm quite fine now, I protested, not anxious to see the Archangel, who perhaps also knew about my midnight escapades. Malik would not hear of my protestations, though. He dragged me along to Barakiel's office in the administration building, casting glances my way with a concerned expression on his face.